Hey guys, it's Damien from Marketing Food Online, and tonight's podcast I'm going to get into small food distributors and how you should probably be working with one right off from the start. So let's get started, guys. All right, guys, so you're looking to start your food business, and as we always talk about on Marketing Food Online YouTube channel, and of course our podcast and marketingfoodonline.com, we show you different ways on how to get a food business up and running or how to create a food product and get your product into the marketplace. Now, there's many different ways that you can obviously sell a food product, and we've covered a lot of them on our YouTube channel. Tonight, I wanted to just talk a little bit about a couple of different ways that you can use smaller regional food distributors, okay? And what exactly are they? Why do you think you need to work with one? And what are some of the types of foods that work best when you are dealing with a more smaller regional food distributor? So, number one, food distributors are basically, if you don't know what they are to begin with, food distributors are kind of like small warehouses that are loaded with normally just locally produced food products, and they are distributed to restaurants, food service, anywhere that specific food product would fit well into the food lineup. If it happens to be inside of a restaurant, if it happens to be a small market, maybe a mom and pop type of operation, non-national chains, things that are just locally smaller chains, if you will, or even independently owned markets and such. So can anyone sell a food product through a local food regional distributor? Of course you could. Of course, it depends upon where you're manufacturing it, and of course you need to follow the certain guidelines for packaging and the FDA established guidelines for food production and such. But once you've already got those hurdles kind of jumped over, you want to find out where is the best place to start producing your product in bulk and then getting it into distribution to have a distributor distribute it for you and handle all the logistical aspects of it. So there are different types of food distributors. Okay, there are some that carry national accounts that basically ship a product from east to west coast and all over and in between. There are some that just handle a certain region of the country, and then there's some that actually just handle a certain region of a certain state, even smaller. Okay, what I would recommend if you're just starting out is to not take a bigger bite off than you can chew by taking on one of these national distributors or expecting that you would understand how that works right off the bat. And what I mean by that is if you can find a local distributor, something that's more regional within your state, that's not necessarily regional within the country where it's handling multiple states, getting your foot in the door with a smaller one would be better off for you to kind of understand and build that relationship with that distributor. So what are some of the things that you need to do first? Well, number one, when you create your food product and you've got it all set, you want to set yourself a goal. You want to figure out what is your distribution goal, and what would that be? What is it that you're looking to do in the long run and the short run, and kind of create kind of a plateau, something that has a goal where you can step up little by little to something bigger and bigger. If you find a local food distributor and you introduce maybe 2 or 3 items, maybe just a couple items, you don't have to have a dozen or more, and then introduce that product to the distributor and see what they think. Obviously, the distributor is in the business. They know what sells well. They know what their specific market has. And then just introduce your product to them. And, of course, build that rapport with them. Have a relationship with the distributor itself. Because they may say, you know what, this is a product that would do well, but not really for what we do. Let me give you the name of another company that may work best. Or they may say, you know what, this is great. This is something that we could take on. And then you'll start getting local distribution through this food distributor within a region, within the state. Okay, and California is gigantic. Obviously, it's a huge state to begin with. But it has a lot of mom and pop and independently owned grocery stores and gourmet food stores. So they are the state in itself, California, is a fantastic place to get started. Now, do you have to necessarily be in California? No, you don't. If your business is actually located in the state, of course that would be a beneficial thing. But you don't necessarily need to be in the state to find a distributor who will work with mom and pop grocery stores and regional sales within the state. If you are producing it in Texas and you want to sell it in California, that's perfectly doable. Of course it can. But you want to kind of create an idea, get a vision in your head of where you want to take your product. And that's where a lot of small food operators kind of get stuck. And in some cases, they give up and they throw their hands up because it's not as easy as creating a product and handing it over to a distributor, and then tomorrow you're collecting checks every month. That's not really how it works. You need to kind of figure out where is it you specifically want to take it. If you don't know enough about your market and your product, then you need to do some research. Find out what sells well. Maybe your product doesn't sell well in California. Maybe it could possibly sell somewhere else. Try to find out who is the demographic, who is the customer, who is the end user of the type of product that you're making. And not every product is going to appeal to everybody. That's just how it is. But with a little bit of research, you don't have to sit there and write a dissertation and sit down and go through a year's worth of research before you introduce it to the market. That's not what I'm saying. But you need to spend a little bit of time, maybe Google, find out where's your product being sold online. What kind of stores carry your product? What part of the country sells better? Believe it or not, yes, whether you know this or not, certain products sell tremendously well in certain states compared to others. And it just doesn't sell. Maybe it's a dead duck that it just doesn't sell at all. So understand, first off, your product. Where can it be sold? And who is the buyer? Because the better off you understand these, well, the more educated you'll be about trying to create a relationship with a food distributor and expecting them to make you money because they're distributing your product. Now, you're not in the state, like I mentioned before, you're selling it to another state. Yes, that's completely doable. Logistically is fine. Now, when that happens, though, just be aware that the further you are away from the warehouse or the distributor, of course, the shipping and a lot of other logistical questions come into play. So keep that in mind. Could it potentially raise the cost of your product where you're making smaller margins? Yeah, it could. It could. You want to find out how that would work with that distributor specifically, because every distributor operates somewhat differently. Across the board, they're relatively the same, but there's always certain aspects of how each one runs because they're all independently owned. So, now, what is the difference between a food broker and a food distributor? Okay, well, a food broker is the guy who has the relationships with the buyers for large chains or grocery stores or companies. They will, on your behalf, kind of promote and be the salesperson to sell the product to the buyers that they have relationships with. Okay, a food distributor is a big warehouse where a guy who operates a company that operates it can bring on board hundreds of different products and warehouses them, and then they have relationships with the retail stores, and they do the logistics. They ship it out, and they make a profit on the distribution of your product. So it's slightly different, but the end result is basically the same. You've got a food broker who stands between you and a whole bunch of retail stores or other outlets and that are going to sell the product. Food distributors are the ones that they're going to take your product on board and distribute it for you because they have relationships with retailers. Okay, so the food broker doesn't necessarily do the warehousing and the logistical part of it. They're the guys who shake the hands and have the relationships with the buyers, and they're going to push your product because they're representing you. Okay. Now, when you want to work with a food distributor on a larger scale, that's not regional. It's not something that's just within a state. The factors become a little different because what they're going to be requiring are larger volumes and bigger quantities because they have to fill larger orders than just a regional sale. So let's say someone within the state of California, let's just use that as an example, and they are distributing it to maybe 20 or 30 mom and pop or independently owned chains, grocery stores, and they don't work with big chains that are nationwide. Well, their volume of orders are going to be smaller, obviously. So can you still make money on that because it's just smaller volume? Oh, of course you can. But when you're starting out, you want to make a profit, but you also want visibility. You want people to see your product, and as a wide variety of people in a much larger space that can see your product, the better off you'll be in trying to grow the business. That's really the goal. Because once you get larger and larger as far as the amount of people who are seeing it and customers from a vast variety of different grocery stores, then you can grow the brand, and you're creating what's known as a brand, and you're going to introduce a much larger line of products. So my opinion, my 2 cents would be to start local, start regional if you're starting out. Most of my subscribers here on YouTube are relatively small, and they're just beginning to get into the business. And taking baby steps is perfectly fine. I actually highly recommend you take baby steps. Do not think that you can absorb a very large order or grow a business very, very fast. So with that being said, I hope that breaks down a little bit about food distributors and starting off regionally as opposed to jumping into something really big. And kind of think about that for a little bit and truly sit down and think about where you want to take your product and who is buying it. That's going to help you figure out what distributor is best for you. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope that was a little informative, giving you some tips on food distributors and, of course, the differences between a food broker and a food distributor. And I always appreciate the big thumbs up. If you have questions about this, please do let me know down in the description. Check out our podcast and our website, marketingfoodonline.com. I have a whole bunch of resources on there as well, and, of course, our YouTube channel has over 300-plus videos to help you get your food business up and running. So we'll see you guys on the next podcast or the next YouTube video. Take care, guys.